Good evening, good morning, and good night. Welcome to Inappropriate Radio. It's your host, Shauna. Let's get into this. So, PSA, I'm outside again, so y'all might hear some noises in the background, and I am in the hood, okay? So, don't know what we gonna hear, alright? But we are phasing through the periodic table, right? Segment, and we started easing in, but I thought we would back out a little bit and kind of just go over these 4 initial elements in a little bit more detail, only because they are really important. They appear to be really important. I think they are, right? Without them, no life can exist. At least 96%, right, of life can exist in this earth, in this dimension, without it. So, those 4 elements are oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, and carbon, right? So I actually asked about 11 or 12 people what they thought the most important element was. And out of about maybe one said hydrogen. I said hydrogen too, but I'm not a part of that group, right? So the people independent of me, one said carbon, one said hydrogen, and then 2 of them said water, but they could only choose one, right? So they were kind of confused. They didn't know which one to pick. But I started to do a little bit more research on oxygen, right? So, of course, we know it's colorless, it's tasteless, it's odorless, and all of that good stuff, right? So this is Googleable information. You can easily look it up. I think this is so important because it just gives you an idea of how we've grown as a people and how the Creator is just really amazing and just so swift and crazy. I don't know. Nobody can really explain it. But, okay. So about 1 billion years ago, there was no free oxygen. We actually had carbon dioxide, right, in the atmosphere, and it's also projected that Earth is not going to have any oxygen in about 1 billion years or so. So that right there within itself just makes me feel like Earth was created with like some sort of clock, right, for a particular time frame or time period, right? That's first. And then what was more interesting, and we went over this, at least 70% of the oxygen in the atmosphere is actually coming from the ocean. So we are actually thinking that it's oxygen, but it's actually nitrogen, right? And then what's even more interesting is that, again, this element is very essential to our living as it stands alone. Okay, and I'm saying that because a lot of the elements that we deem important are important on their own, and then they become even more important when combined with other elements, like carbon dioxide. Okay, let me back up. Now, when we look at oxygen, I wanted to break it down, and I wanted to look at how important it was for our body, as far as the atmosphere, as far as our spirituality, and how it is important as it relates to other elements. Okay, so now we need about 0.84 kilograms of oxygen a day, right? It's responsible for metabolizing our food. It helps organisms grow and reproduce. Without oxygen, obviously we'll die at least 4 to 8 minutes. I read something that said the longest person who held their breath, they lived and they held their breath for 22 minutes. That's so crazy, right? But one thing that I noticed is that carbon dioxide kept coming up, which is what? A compound, right? Just like water, a compound. These two elements that are combined and they make a compound because they are in fixed parts. So you have the two elements in fixed parts, water. So it's two hydrogens to one oxygen. Carbon dioxide. One carbon to two oxygens, right? These are also important as far as life is concerned. So now with the body, our body needs the oxygen to create carbon dioxide, and it's used as a waste product, right? The carbon dioxide it causes cells, to use it for our metabolism. Okay, so now we already discussed how it is important as far as the atmosphere, right? It's responsible for our breathing. We need it in our lungs, again, to create blood flow and for life itself to be even there for reproduction, right? Now, when you go over to how it is important to us spiritually, it's mainly connected to the mind. Obviously, we need it to live again, but the nervous system is the main thing that needs the oxygen. And what's crazy is it produces clarity, and the more oxygen you have, the more serotonin you have, which is the happy hormone, right? It stabilizes your mind. So this explains why exercise and breathing techniques are really helpful for calming and reducing the symptoms of anxiety and just overall clarity, right? Lack of depression is related to psychosis and depression. So I thought that was crazy. Now, when you go over to other elements, you have this process called oxidation. Again, totally Googleable, nothing fancy smancy, all surface level stuff. But I just thought that we needed to break these elements down and kind of look at them one-on-one before we started to go into the groups, because it'll make a little bit more sense to us as we start phasing through the rest of the series, okay? Now, you have this process, right, called oxidation, where oxygen is formed with another element, and the process causes the other substance to become greater in electrons, while the oxygen itself is being reduced in the amount of electrons that it has. I'm so sorry for the noise. Now, this is important because chemicals can be formed from this, right? We're going to go over like chemicals and the difference between chemicals and elements and compounds and all of that, but I just wanted to first go over this because, again, it'll make much more sense later. Now, what I found really interesting as far as the atmosphere and how it is important is because, we have this death zone, right? When you go about 8 meters or 26,000 feet into the air, we'll die, right? You can die once you go up that far because there's no oxygen. So it got me to thinking, like, what is alive in that area? Obviously we're not up there, right? We're not up there. So what is going on that at least that we can be alive up until we get to at least that level, right? That's the beginning of a new dimension. That's reaching out into a new dimension, and it's still accessible to us. At least when we're hiking or we're on an airplane, things like that. So I just thought that was really interesting. Now, when you have things like peroxide and carbon dioxide and water, it makes you think, yes, oxygen may be one of the most important elements. I too actually did say hydrogen. And I say hydrogen because it is, first of all, it only has one electron, right? That's number one. And if you read, life is considered to start with only one little atom. So I wanted to just, look at how simple things can be combined to make really large and important things, and kind of just stress on that, because out of 118 of the elements, 94 of them are natural. So that other 20% of elements that have been, I would say made. I want to use another word, but just to keep it simple, those other elements are still important, and they have allowed us to become more advanced as a people. We're learning, right? And they've allowed us to see that other elements do exist. Then I got to thinking. I started doing more research, and then it made me think. What is glass? And glass is actually a combination of many different chemicals or elements, right? So we have all of these different ways of researching and then testing and coming up with new, ideas, life hacks. Just from these little basic, simple things. Now, before we end this, again, I want you to just think about how important these elements are. Number one, think about how we have a particular amount, right? Because too much of anything is bad, and then obviously not enough of it can also be detrimental, because too much oxygen can actually kill you, just like too much water or too much carbon dioxide, right? So I thought that would be a really good perspective to consider. Another thing I thought would be important to consider is the atmosphere. How we no longer have oxygen at this particular altitude. And then to even further expand on that, when you go out into the atmosphere, like the galaxy, it's the third most abundant. So it's not even important in other, realms, in other dimensions. So it just brings you back to human life and just what makes these things so important. Where are these elements coming from? And not just oxygen, all of them, but mainly oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, and hydrogen. Because we need all of those things to live, all of us. So yeah, I just wanted to go into that a little bit more. Now, of course, we have this element, right, which is oxygen, and then we have compounds, right? And I'm not going to go too much into this because I want to dedicate a particular segment to the differences. But I just wanted to, expound on that, because again, those two elements combined create necessary things for life to be sustained. So now let's go back to this time frame. About 1 billion years ago, we had more carbon dioxide, and then fast forward in about 1 billion years or so, there's going to be no oxygen. So what's going on right now, that the time we're living in, the time that has passed, and the time to come, that we only need oxygen for that period, or we're only going to have oxygen for that period, right? Okay, so I just wanted to throw that out there. Let's not take this thing for granted, all right, guys? But I do love y'all. I do hope y'all are gonna enjoy y'all summer. Fast and pray on those summer trips for those babies. Congratulations to all the grads, class of 2023. I love y'all. I hope y'all are gonna enjoy your weekend. I hope y'all drinking y'all water, eating y'all fruit and y'all vegetables, and minding y'all business, and sipping y'all tea, because what? It's free. All right, I'm gonna let y'all go. I'm out of here. Peace.